The North Carolina police officer who shot and killed a former Florida A&M football player is back in court today. Former Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department officer Randall West Carrick is charged with voluntary manslaughter in the death of Jonathan Ferrell back in 2013. Now, reportedly, 24-year-old Ferrell crashed his car following a fight with his fiancée and a night of partying. Carrick's attorneys, on the other hand, says Ferrell charged police officers on the scene, and that's when Carrick opened fire, shooting 12 times at the FAMU alum. Now wounded, Ferrell went to the first house he saw, kicking and pounding, asking for help, but was turned away and eventually died from his injuries. Randall Carrick faces up to 11 years in prison if convicted. Joining us on the panel today, Lauren Victoria Burke, who is the managing editor of Politic365.com, Dr. Cleo Manago, behavioral expert and CEO of the Black Men's Exchange, and Leila McDowell, who is the Washington bureau chief for Arise TV. So this case happened, in 2013, a couple of years ago. The officer is now just coming to trial and shot 12 times after having a car accident and going for help. So right off the bat, it seems like, here is another case where there was not really a very serious, in fact, no crime, and the person ends up dead at the hands of a police officer. So give me your first thoughts about this case.
Well, my first thoughts is that we need to have a really serious discussion about the way we hire police, because and the lack of, obviously in these small towns it's certainly different than, say, the federal level, but these incidents are really just ridiculous. I mean, somebody's coming towards you, so you take out your gun and you shoot them 12 times. That's why I find it so hard to believe that people found the Michael Brown case, which happened almost exactly a year ago, hard to believe. Why should these incidents end in somebody being dead? Nobody can explain.
Let's talk about the link between the 911 call from the woman who he pounded on the door, is what she says, that she thought it was her husband. She opened up the door, realized it wasn't. I'm sure she thought, scary black man, and like closed it immediately, because I'm just trying to replay it in my mind. But then I want to give the benefit of the doubt that it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Even if someone came to my door in the same fashion, I might be very concerned as well. So she slams the door closed, she gets it locked. He never even gets into the house. She calls 911, and this is where I always think there's a disconnect. The nature of the 911 call. I'm so afraid, there's a black man at my door, he's about to kill me, and then the police come. They have that vision in their mind of the call from the 911 operator, who intensifies things, I believe, before the police even get on the scene. Do you think it starts there, or do you think that the police officers are able to distinguish between the 911 call, like somebody needs help because they had a car accident and came to someone's door, or there's a very scary black man at some white woman's door?
Mo,
what do you think, Cleo?
I'm having a hard time trying to reanimate myself about this topic because it's about as redundant as my breathing. And something has got to give. And I hope that I don't sound like I'm ignoring your question by saying that the new narrative has to be, what are black people going to do about the cliche of being murdered under these circumstances? Because it's happening over and over and over again. And for example, in terms of solutions, I just proposed to members of Congress last week that they create a bill where, for example, if you kill somebody, particularly a black person, but anybody, you can't make no money off the crime. You cannot be bailed out. People can't, like the guy that's
the GoFundMe pages.
Ray Tenzing, who murdered somebody in Ohio, was immediately funded by people, predominantly white people, of course, giving him money. That is, it's like just like a murderer cannot make money off of a movie based on what they've done.
First place to start,
we need to make sure they cannot make money, or they lose everything for killing somebody.
Okay, well, the first place would start with the paid leave, because that is the equivalent of vacation. So that would start on the state police level. That when an unarmed black man is killed by a police officer, there would have to be some mechanism to affect the police officer's pay in order for there to be sort of expediency in it. But the police unions will fight that, tooth and nail, and that's something that would be probably very hard to change.
But you hit the key thing, and I think that's accountability. And let's look at just what's happened this year. There's been about 700 police killings this year. 30%, of course, of all police killings are of black men, and that data is conservative because they don't have to report that data. And let's look at some of these cases. I mean, you have Dante Parker. These are the lesser known cases. Dante Parker in San Bernardino, father of 5. He dies after being repeatedly tased by police. You've got a young woman, Tanisha, her last name, Tanisha Fulworth, I believe her name was, 36 years old. She dies after having her head slammed up against the concrete in Cleveland by police. And those cases go on and on. There's 700 just this year alone. So I think that one of the key things, and if you look at the statistics, as I said, 30% of all police killings are of black men. So there's an implicit bias. So when we talk about the specific case that we're just talking about now, that implicit bias beyond the 911 call drives police to look at a black man differently than if he was a white man in a suit banging on a door asking for help.
That's the core of it, right? That's the implicit, the psychological bias that already exists, right? So we could do all the things we're going to do on the federal level, on the state level. How do you change people? It's that officer
you have to
coming.
Prosecute them.
Well,
you have
to give them some pain themselves.
Right. They have to pay a personal price for what they're doing.
Yes.
And we have to change the narrative, which is always, what did you do to get yourself killed? So in this case, the what did you do to get yourself killed is, wow, he rushed them. Well, so what? He didn't have a weapon.
That's right.
I mean, I don't care what was said on the 911 call. Actually, when you get there and you assess the scene and you find somebody without a weapon that's walking or moving towards you, that is not necessarily a justification to shoot them 12 times.
The officer did not call out to him. The officer did not ask what was wrong. The officer did not say, stop, don't. He just began to shoot. Now, here's the second piece, which we continue to hear this narrative over and over. He was given no help, even when the medic came and asked the officers if they could turn him over in order to see if he had a pulse. And the officers said, no, do not turn him over.
Which is outrageous.
An opportunity to save his life.
In this country, if you do something so-called homophobic or so-called anti-Semite, and there's a pattern, you have hell to pay. You don't get away with that. It never becomes a norm. It is nipped in the bud, and that community addresses it. But our community, which is part of what happens after long-term trauma, long-term normalization of your life not matters, that we have internalized that as a people.
Right.
And we have normalized that, and we are resistant regarding hanging in there to resist the suppression of us until it becomes risky to hurt us.
The media tends to take the benefit of the doubt of the authorities. So once the police comes out, the narrative of the police is just automatically.
Well, and a good example of that is the
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, please.
No, I was going to say, is an example of the case of Sam DuBose.
Right. Suicide automatically.
Right.
Absolutely. Mental illness. Right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But with Sam DuBose, they had a video cam.
Sure.
So I think that and the officer has been indicted, and is on trial. But the officer says, yes, he dragged me in his car. That's not on video.
But that would also only be to come out in public after fighting to have that video released. So what you said about the narrative is absolutely right. That narrative will stick unless there's video.
You gotta love the boldness of the cop lying about something that he knew was on tape.
That he and also the boldness of him to believe that the tape would never be released.
That's right.
That he would have enough support from his higher-ups, from his colleagues, and even from the police union to fight his privacy rights rather than the rights of the person that he just killed. But I want to say it has not become normal place for us to not feel something about this. It's just been hard to find a reprieve, some action, some things that will change. And I mean, you were about to roll down a list. You can add triple that, quadruple it, 5 times it, because we're only beginning to take light and notice of these cases because of video.
Well, Black Lives Matter has done a good job.
How long has this been going on?
Black Lives Matter has done a very good job at putting the focus on this, putting the video out there and everything else.
And we're going to talk about another case, too, coming up. Another black woman was found dead in her jail cell while in police custody. The New York District Attorney is launching a formal investigation. Plus, President Obama unveils a major plan to fight climate change, strengthen minority communities, and find out how a school matching program helped students of color earn almost $8 million in private school scholarships last year. For the latest news, stay up to date and informed at newsone.com. Hit me up with your thoughts on Twitter at Mo Ivory or at News One or on our News One Facebook page. It's 10 after the hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back.